Let me tell you a story that started with a sauna, a bottle of rosé, and one very entitled neighbor who believed that what's yours is actually hers if she's in charge of the HOA. Now, my name's Cole. I'm a combat veteran who moved to a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in the northern Arizona, right on the edge of an HOA-controlled community called Oak Haven. The key word there, edge. See, when I bought my property, I made damn sure it was just outside the HOA's jurisdiction. I wasn't trying to live lawless. I just didn't want a bunch of clipboard crusaders telling me what color my mailbox should be. After years of PTSD, therapy, and chaotic city living, I finally built myself a haven, my pride and joy. A custom-built cedar sauna tucked behind a row of evergreens. It was my place to decompress. No noise, no drama, just steam and peace. Enter Sylvia Brennan, president of the Oak Haven HOA, and a woman who probably thought she was cast as a neighborhood queen in some low-budget drama. She had a nasty habit of patrolling homes with a measuring tape in one hand and a violation slip in the other. We first crossed paths when she tried to cite me for having porch lights that disrupted the aesthetic harmony of the street. Never mind that her HOA had no authority over my property. I showed her the notarized exemption papers. She smirked, dropped a citation in my mailbox anyway, and walked off like she was delivering divine judgment. Turns out, Sylvia wasn't just obsessed with rules. She was obsessed with control. The HOA was her little empire, and she didn't like that someone was living outside it and thriving. One afternoon, I was out grabbing groceries when I got a motion alert from my security cam. I figured it was a squirrel or maybe a delivery guy turning around in my driveway. Nope, it was Sylvia, in a white towel, barefoot, carrying a bottle of wine and a Bluetooth speaker. I kid you not. She walked right up to my private sauna, glanced around like she was clearing a sniper zone, and slipped inside like she owned the place. I watched on the inside cam as she laid back on the bench, sipped her wine, and put on spa music. My spa music. Then came the part that made my blood boil. She called someone on the speaker and said, "He'll never know. His house is basically a public amenity. He just doesn't realize it yet." That's when I decided this wasn't about boundaries anymore. It was about principle. 3 weeks prior, I'd seen her walking my fence line with binoculars and a clipboard. I knew something was coming, but I didn't think she'd go full invasion. I was furious, but not reckless. I didn't want to scream or make a scene. No, I wanted justice. Poetic, undeniable justice. So I called my old buddy Mike. He runs a wildlife control business and helped me once with a skunk issue under the deck. I asked if he still had one of those scent generators they use to repel coyotes. Non-toxic. Legal. Smells like hell. When I told him my plan, he nearly dropped the phone laughing. By the end of the week, I had the gear. I tested it once in the garage and immediately had to evacuate for an hour. It worked. The scent was indistinguishable from a real skunk. Perfect. I wired the diffuser under the sauna bench and synced it to a remote trigger on my phone. I adjusted the cameras. I reprogrammed the motion detector to only alert me when a person walked up. Now all I had to do was wait. Sylvia didn't disappoint. 2 days later, I got the ping. She was back. Towel, wine, and all. She crept along the side of my yard, opened the sauna, and went in like she was checking into a spa. She leaned back, blasted her Zen playlist, and sighed like she just escaped the stress of her full-time tyranny. I let her get comfortable. Then I hit the button. At first, she just wrinkled her nose. 10 seconds in, she started sniffing the air. By 15, she bolted upright, gagging, waving her hands like she was fighting off a ghost. She reached for the door, but the humidity had made the seals stick just enough to delay her escape. The camera inside caught every second, her slipping on her towel, her eyes wide in horror, her dramatic sprint out the door. She ran across my lawn like she was fleeing a nuclear meltdown, screaming about gas attacks and environmental sabotage. Didn't even grab her wine. My neighbor across the street, who'd been watering his roses, caught it all on his phone. He called me later and said, "Man, you owe me a six-pack. That was better than Netflix." Naturally, Sylvia called the police. When they arrived, I showed them the footage. Her trespassing, sitting, relaxing, and then triggering the diffuser. One officer bit his lip to keep from laughing. The other said, "Ma'am, you're lucky it wasn't an actual skunk." They gave her a formal warning for trespassing and told her to drop it. But she didn't. A few days later, I received a cease and desist letter, supposedly from her lawyer brother-in-law, demanding I remove the sauna, issue an apology, and destroy all video evidence. The letter looked like it had been written by someone using a cereal box as a legal template. I sent it to my actual lawyer. He laughed and said, if they'd added crayons, it might have had more credibility. That's when I decided to go public. I requested a special HOA meeting and came with receipts, videos, documents, testimonies. Turns out, I wasn't the only one with a Sylvia horror story. Mr. James down the street got fined for having a purple wreath in honor of his late wife. A young couple got cited for letting balloons linger after their kid's birthday. Another woman had been harassed over the sound of her porch swing. One by one, people stood up and shared how Sylvia had made their lives miserable. Her rule wasn't about order, it was about control. And we were done playing by her rules. By the end of the night, the board voted. Sylvia was officially removed as HOA President. Her replacement, a retired firefighter named Rick, who once saved a stray cat using a mop and a bucket. People cheered, but Sylvia wasn't done. She filed bogus complaints to the county. She tried to get a restraining order. She even printed Comic Sans flyers, blaming me for psychological warfare. It was so outrageous, someone turned it into a TikTok skit. It went viral. Steam Room Sylvia was born. And unfortunately for her, the internet never forgets. Eventually, the petty stunts stopped. A for sale sign appeared in her yard like a white flag. She moved out quietly, head down, sunglasses on. The dictatorship was over. That night, I poured a cold drink, stepped into my sauna, and let the heat wash over me. No cameras, no chaos, just peace. Before I left, I swapped the old sign on the door with a new one I carved myself. It read, "Trespassers will be skunked. It's more than a warning, it's a legacy. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA? Or had a neighbor who thought they owned more than just their property? Drop your story in the comments below. I'll be reading every one. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales of justice, revenge, and neighborhood chaos. See you in the next one.